So I continued on in Job today. I read chapters 5 through 7, and in these chapters, it's really just Job and his friends kind of going back and forth. There's really not some big epiphany that happens. It's really just kind of working through their conversations that are going to go on for a while. And so in chapter 5, it's really Eliphaz just continuing on his first message to Job about basically how Job has sinned and brought this on himself and that he needs to repent to God. And so in chapter 5, verse 8, he says, "But if I were you, I would appeal to God. I would lay my cause before him." So he is calling Job out and saying, look, if I were in your spot, this is what I'd do. And I would go to God. And he's kind of saying that Job is not. And so that was the first thing that I was like, man, he's really going after him right here. And then in chapters 6 and 7, Job replies to him. And he starts by saying, "If only my anguish could be weighed and all my misery be placed on the scales, it would surely outweigh the sand of the seas." Job is feeling so much pain that I can't even wrap my mind around what he was probably feeling, just because of the magnitude of everything that was taken from him in a short period of time. And so he is telling them, look, I am going through some extreme amounts of grief. So don't take my complaining as just for the heck of it. I'm working through this, and that's why I am saying these things. Like, excuse me for my words being rash, but I'm going through some hard stuff right now. And he even talks about, this tasteless food eaten without salt is their flavor in the sap of the mallow. I refuse to touch it. Such food makes me ill. Eliphaz, his words are like food without taste. They're useless. It's not making him feel better. It's making him ill. And so that reminded me of how important our words are, especially when we're trying to be comforting and being there for somebody. How important it is for our words to not be like tasteless food. That if we do speak, our words are salted and useful and not going to make it worse. And I think that that's super important to remember as we are brothers and sisters trying to comfort fellow brothers and sisters that are struggling. And so moving on from there, he tells them that right now he needs kindness from his brothers, and his brothers are not giving him that. He says, "My brothers are as undependable as intermittent streams." And he gives the analogy of, snow in the heat. I mean, they're not there when he needs them to be, and they're not showing him that kindness. And he even says in verse 24 of chapter 6, "Teach me and I will be quiet. Show me where I have been wrong. How painful are honest words, but what do your arguments prove?" Job's saying, look, show me where I have done such sin that you talk about that I need to repent for. Show me where I've done that and I'll listen. But right now, you're not showing me that. So your argument is not valid. And so he is calling them out. He's like, look, you're not making sense because I haven't done that. Show me where I have and I'll listen. And so I thought that was huge, because he wasn't going to sit there and listen to his friends that were giving him this advice that was not entirely true or helpful. And so it was really cool in chapter 7 how Job, in chapter 6, he was talking directly to Eliphaz and the other two. But then in chapter 7, it was almost as though he was talking straight to God. So he was talking to them, but also to God. And he is still struggling. I mean, he just feels like he wants to die. He is going through intense physical pain. So his sores are opened up. He has worms, and he is festering, and he can't find comfort even in sleep. He is struggling. And not just on the outside. He is having some serious spiritual warfare right now. And he even says in chapter 7, verse 20, "If I have sinned, what have I done to you? You who see everything we do. Why have you made me your target? Have I become a burden to you?" And these chapters, especially 6 and 7, it broke my heart for Job, because reading the amount of pain that he is going through is hard. It's hard to read, because all you want to do is tell him, look, this is what's really going on, and you can't. And so you're having to sit there, watch him, and listen to him suffer. And I just can't imagine. And I know that that's probably a common feeling for those going through grief. And like I said earlier, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that, because I haven't went through such grief. But him saying, what have I done? What sin have I done that has caused this? Why am I your target? Why are you coming after me? And it's not God coming after you. And I know he felt that. He felt like God was just out to get him and punishing him. And he even used the analogy of God's arrows through him. And it's not God. It was Satan who went out and did all of these things to him, and God's still there. God was there saying, look, he is faithful to me. Do what you want to him. He is faithful. And I want, this, it hurts me to just read this, because the intense amount of pain that he just felt so hopeless and wanted to die. And I hate that. But not only do I hate that, he is still choosing not to curse God. He's not saying, God, you did this to me. He's just asking, why do I feel like a target? Why do I feel like I can't go on? He just feels an amount of hopelessness. And I hate that his friends kind of made it worse, because I can't imagine going through that amount of grief and trying to understand, why is this happening? And then my friends coming out and saying, well, you must have did some sins right here. You need to repent for it. You didn't do something right, and that's why this is happening. And I know that probably made things so much worse, especially knowing the amount of spiritual warfare that he's going through. So I cannot wait to keep reading into these conversations, because I know his friends are going to have more to say, and it's really going to be back and forth. So I'm really ready to keep reading and see, what they have to say and how Job continues to handle all of this grief. So happy Tuesday. God bless.